This is Protect the Den. Produced in Orem, Utah, and found on YouTube, Twitter, and all podcast locations.
Cortez skipping it to De Los Santos, who just hit one from there and connected.
Here are your hosts, Jarod Ivins and Brice Larson.
Welcome to Protect the Den. I'm Jarod Ivins alongside Brice Larson. And this beautiful morning, we are joined by head coach of the Utah Valley Wolverines, Mark Madsen.
Mark, how are you doing today?
Doing great, guys. Appreciate you guys having me on the show.
Yeah, we're excited to have you on. It looks like you're at home there.
Yep, I've been spending a lot of time in this office. Done a lot of recruiting from here. I think I do see a basketball in the background, but I got to get some better props back up there. My wife always tells me I've got to improve the background a little bit.
That's awesome, Coach. Well, we're very excited to have you join the show today, and we're going to start a little bit talking about Michael Jordan. The Last Dance aired on Sunday. Were you able to watch any of that?
I haven't watched it yet, but a lot of my friends have been talking about it, and I've heard great things about it. I want to sit down and carve out some time to watch it.
Yeah, I think we see you in one of the shots there. But in your career in the NBA, you were 3-1 in games versus Michael Jordan while you played for the Lakers, and actually you were undefeated in games that you played. You started in two of those games. You had a couple buckets. And Kobe, of course, was Kobe, and he did that work. What was it like to play against Michael Jordan?
Well, first of all, I caught him at the tail end of his career, but he was still dominant. He was still completely dominant. Just seeing him out there, it was clear that he didn't have quite the same spring in his step, but his footwork and the skill level and the shooting ability just allowed him to go out there and still play at a high level, despite the fact that he was late 30s, 40s, maybe even. But I'll never forget that game in the Staples Center, the one that you were mentioning, when Kobe went for 50, and it seemed like he just could not miss from the three-point line. I mean, every time he took a three, and most of them, as I remember, were catch-and-shoot threes, the crowd just became more and more entranced. It was almost like the crowd couldn't believe it, because Kobe hadn't really shot threes like that very often, but I mean, Kobe went off that game.
Yeah, he did. 55 points. He was 15 for 29, 9 of 13 from the three, and 16 of 18 from free throws. And it's not like Jordan had a bad game. 23 points, 10 for 20 on field goals. It was a great game for MJ, shooting 50% from the field, doing what he had always done. So it was just a dogfight, and you guys got the win. But in your personal experience, what was your favorite moment against Michael Jordan?
Well, I have a few things to say on that. I mean, I never squared up with him one-on-one, but there was a time, for some reason as a player, when an opponent would take a shot right in front of our bench, a lot of times I would just yell at him, just scream at him and try to distract him. I mean, it happened with Allen Iverson in the NBA Finals. And again, it's not personal. I have great respect for these players. I mean, what I would do is I would yell out "shot," which meaning everyone should look for a rebound. But I would yell it out loud, and maybe I shouldn't have done it like that, but I did it. So MJ took a fadeaway on the baseline, and I yelled "shot" so loud from the bench. He made it. And he just turned and looked at me. And so I'll never forget that. And then there was another time, I think it was after that game, when sometimes in the NBA, you play a game at home and then you go straight to the airport to fly out for another game the very next day, back-to-back. So I think it was after that game, but we were sitting on the plane waiting to take off. I think we had definitely just played the Wizards. I'm not sure which of the 4 games it was. But I was sitting in the middle of the plane. Phil Jackson was sitting behind me a few rows. And I'm waiting for all the players to filter into the plane. And I see a guy get on the front of the plane. He's got a suit on. And he's got earrings. And I look at it and I say to myself, that's Michael Jordan getting on the Lakers team plane. And so in my mind, I'm thinking, hey, this is my one chance to introduce myself and have a personal connection with MJ. So he's walking down the aisle, and I'm trying to make eye contact with him, and it's clear he's going straight back for Phil. That's who he's going to talk to. And so I just, I didn't stand up, but I looked right at him. I said, "How you doing, Michael?" And he put his hand out. He said, "How you doing, big fella?" and he kept on walking for Phil. So that's my in-person experience with MJ. But I mean, nothing but respect for him. I mean, what he did on the court, what he's done since his playing days have terminated is incredible. He's a role model. He's an icon. He's a business leader. He's so many things, and he did so much for the game.
Definitely.
Now, earlier you were telling us about an on-court experience that you had with Michael Jordan, and it came to be your mom's favorite picture. Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, it's funny. There is a picture, and it looks like I'm about to dunk, and Michael Jordan's in the frame. I'm not dunking over anybody, but he's a little bit behind me. And, my parents love the picture, especially my mom, because Michael Jordan's in the picture, and it looks like I'm scoring, and I can't remember if I made that shot or not. I can't remember.
We'll say it went in.
Yeah, we'll say it went in. But I tell my mom sometimes, I say, "Look, I'm not even sure I made that shot." And she says, "Hey, Michael Jordan's right there. You're going over him." So we have fun with that.
It's awesome. And you were able to play with some great Hall of Famers in your career. Michael Jordan, we just said, Kobe Bryant, Shaq, Kevin Garnett. What were some of the things you learned about the game and about life that you've brought to UVU?
Well, I think one of the biggest things I learned, first of all, tremendous respect for each one of those players you mentioned. Kevin Garnett, Shaquille, Kobe. I feel bad for the Kobe situation. This year was hard, Kobe died in a tragic way. Then we get the coronavirus. A lot of things are, the first one hit the sports world, and this next one is hitting the whole world. So it's hard. But in terms of what I learned from those great people is you got to have thick skin. You've got to have thick skin. My high school coach used to tell us, he used to say, "Hey, you have to have such thick skin that no matter what gets said to you or what happens, it just bounces off of you." And then getting to the NBA, I'll never forget seeing Ron Harper in the locker room at our practice facility one day, just telling a younger player, almost yelling at him, pointing his finger, "Man, you've got to have thick skin. You can't be sensitive. You've got to have thick skin." And that was Ron Harper just trying to help this player. And why? Well, the reason why is because in the NBA, the stakes are very high. And all those players, Kevin Garnett, Kobe, Shaq, they demanded the best from you. It wasn't personal, but the demands sometimes were very great, and you couldn't take it personally. And so you had to develop thick skin, resilience, and you had to be able to bounce back after tough games, after missing a shot, after making a mistake on the court. And that is something that I really try to instill with our UVU players. Hey, it's okay to make a mistake. Acknowledge the mistake, but then bounce back, be ready to make an outstanding recovery on the court the next play down.
So, Coach, this was your first year here at Utah Valley. Kind of walk us through what it's like to recruit here. Why should players come? What's your pitch when you talk to a player?
Well, there are a lot of things. Number one, first and foremost, this is an absolutely world-class academic institution, UVU. I mean, you've got probably any class you can think of, we have it. Any type of experiential learning experience, we probably have it. And if we don't have it, they're working on getting it. And so from an academic standpoint, UVU doesn't go back to seat to anybody. And then from a basketball standpoint, the opportunity to do something special. Obviously, the goal for UVU is to make a deep NCAA tournament run. We haven't done it yet in school history, but we're standing on the shoulders of giants. You look at all the players that have come through here: Ronnie Price, Ben Aird. I could list. I mean, Dr. Kevin Woods, who's now a mental health expert at UVU. I mean, I could go down the list, guys, but number one, just the players and the tradition that's here. You look at the coaching work that Dick Hunsaker did here. Unbelievable. You look at what Coach Mark Pope did here. Unbelievable in terms of the success that both coaches had. And so you're standing on the shoulders of giants, the players, the coaches that have gone before you. And what you want to do is you want to build on it, and you want it to culminate in something special. I have a vision of UVU going to the NCAA tournament. To realize that vision, it's going to take a lot of hard work. It's going to take the right players, we're out there recruiting great players. It's going to take making plays in key moments. But if we can do all those things, and that's the belief that I have, is that we can. If we can do that, I have a vision of chartered planes flying into NCAA tournament sites. Of you look up in the crowds and you can see the sea of green. You can see President Tuminez with the palm wave. You can see families driving in 6-8 hours to be at that game to support their alma mater. And above all, you see the UVU players sweaty. Maybe there's some blood, but just the opportunity to compete at that level, to have a deep run in the NCAA tournament.
Yeah. And this roster, like you said, is starting to come together. Evan Cole, Trey Darthard, Colby Leifson, Trey Farrer, and more that are coming in as you guys are announcing them. Blaze Neal being one of those signees. Coach, what are the expectations that fans should have with these new players that you've been able to bring in for this coming season?
Well, I think the expectation is to continue to build on the success that we've had. I really felt like towards the end of last season, we were starting to click. Our defense was playing at a high level most of the year. Our offense really started to, for a lot of the year, Jarod, our defense was ahead of our offense. But we worked at it. And by the end of the season, the two were starting to sync up a little bit, the defense and the offense. And special wins were starting to happen. We were just playing at a high level. I think we were excited going down to Las Vegas because we were playing so well. And so to build on that momentum from last season and to then catapult that into the coming year is something we're all excited about.
And Coach, this season for recruiting has kind of been a little bit crazy. How have you been able to adapt with the sanctions that's been placed on you, with the coronavirus and all of that?
When they tell you can't do certain things, it's kind of like a glass of water. You dump it out and the water just finds the cracks and the seams anywhere. And so they told us we couldn't travel. They told us we couldn't bring recruits to campus. And so we've been searching out for the cracks and seams of the things that we can do. One of which is right now we're using Skype. It's a great tool. I've used it my whole life. I had no idea what Zoom was. I had no,
Neither did I.
I mean, I might be old school on some things, but I'm not Stone Age. And I didn't know what Zoom was, but we've conducted numerous meetings on Zoom with our own players, with recruits, with their families. I think we've done one FaceTime call because the other group didn't want to do Zoom. But no, you're trying to share information about the program, UVU, the style of play with recruits, and you're trying to do it remotely. So it's presented a challenge, but hey, we've embraced that, and we've been able to communicate our message.
Coach, we're very excited for the recruits to keep coming in. We're excited for this all to happen, to come to pass in this future season. We're hoping that fans will be able to be allowed at games. And, we also have that vision of teams and fans and us all traveling to those NCAA tournament games. And, we're excited for the future here. And we're grateful for all that you do for UVU.
Well, I mean, look, Jarod, I appreciate it. We wouldn't have the great environment that we have without people like yourself and Brice that tell the story. And I was telling someone earlier, everything we do, I mean, it's centered around the great players that we have. Everything. I mean, you look at the current players that we have returning, and you look at the new faces that have come in, number one, these are highly skilled athletes. Number two, they're great students. But number three, every player has a unique story that intertwines like thread and comes together to Orem, Utah. And so that's the biggest thing that I want is I want our players to share their stories with the community. I want our players to get out into the community and to learn about people here. You look at Fardaws, he's an international player. He's a Canadian. He has a rich background. You look at Brandon Averitz out of the Dallas area. I mean, he's come 1,000 miles or more, and getting to know himself and his parents has been rich for me. I could talk about every player, but then you've got an Asa McCord, who's a local product, who knows the area, who has grown up in some ways knowing all about the UVU tradition. And so you have all these different narratives and you weave them together and you create something special.
Yeah. We're very excited, and thank you once again, Coach, for joining us on the show today.
Thanks for having me, guys. Look forward to talking to you guys more.
That was Coach Mark Madsen on Protect the Den. Thank you so much. We'll be right back after this.